This report comes within the context of an evolving global landscape in the sense that a lot of advanced economies are adopting inward-looking policies. The Trump administration recently just slashed the foreign aid funding, which, to be honest, a number of sub-Saharan countries have been relying on for funding. When it comes to the capitalization and the ability to finance this kind of revolution, how well do you feel we are prepared for this?
So I think this is a big challenge because the international financial institutions have a role, the big tech companies have a role, the aid and development agencies of the West also have a role, and of course the governments in the countries themselves have a role. What we're really saying in this report is that everyone's got to understand the significance of this revolution and therefore preparing for it. And people have different things that they can do, but I personally think it would be very short-sighted of the Western world to eliminate or cut its investment in Africa. This is the moment actually to invest in Africa. It's the moment to realize there's an enormous potential to be realized and to understand that when you look back, in the 10 years since I left office, there has been immense change and most of it for the better. Now, there's still huge problems and challenges that remain, but this is not the moment to turn our backs on engagement in the world. It's the moment to engage.
The report speaks specifically to the issue of the divergence between the change makers and the policy makers. If you could speak a little bit into this and how this is a hurdle in terms of harnessing the potential of the fourth industrial revolution.
So this industrial revolution, this technological revolution around big data, automation, 3D printing, all of these changes, this is going to transform everything. So when I was in government, technology was another subject alongside health, education, law and order, industry, infrastructure, right? Today, technology is going to transform all of those things. So the risk is that not just here in Kenya and not just here in Africa, but globally, that there is a gulf of understanding between the people driving this change in the technology sector and the policymakers who find a lot of this difficult to understand and comprehend. And for example, if you take healthcare or education, the way we do healthcare and education should be transformed as a result of technology. Transport should be transformed. So the risk is that automation will displace some jobs and create others, and government's not prepared for that. That's one risk. And the other risk is there are fantastic opportunities with this technology and governments don't take advantage of them. So what we're saying is, in this age of automation, there are huge challenges, immense opportunities, and government has to prepare.
The youth and the shifting demographics in the continent as both an opportunity and a risk. Please speak to this one.
So the population of Africa is going to double by the middle of this century. This is a challenge and opportunity. It's a challenge because there are a whole lot of young people that are going to come onto the labour market, and if the world's changing through technology, we need to make sure that they have the opportunity to get the new jobs of the future as well as do the jobs that exist now. So that's a big challenge for all governments here in the continent of Africa. But it's also an opportunity because the population in the West is aging, and indeed it is in China as well, by the way. So there's going to be, if we prepare ourselves properly and if we use the technology in order to start educating people better, then there's the opportunity also for the youth of Africa to be the drivers of change for the future.
One of the key challenges you mentioned around the continent of Africa is the issue of monitoring and evaluation. To what capacity do you feel this is a hurdle, especially when it comes to this issue of the policy versus the change makers?
So I think one thing that's really important, always in government, the great challenge is implementation. It's how you get things done. You can sit and talk and write great papers, but how you make change on the ground is the single biggest challenge for government. And that's true for this technology as well. So the risk obviously is that as technology starts to change things, so for example, it will be possible for countries and companies that have been locating plants overseas through technology to actually repatriate those plants and bring them back into their own countries. So what happens when that type of investment starts to dry up? How do you then create new opportunities? How do you, for example, use technology to be developing much more local content in your industry here in Kenya, for example. So these are the things that people are going to find most difficult.